Welcome to this explainer. Look, the conversation around AI right now, it is loud, it's incredibly messy, and it's full of absolute extremes. One minute we're dreaming of a techno-utopia, and the next we're bracing for an apocalyptic nightmare. But to really grasp what's happening, we've got to cut through all that noise. Today, we're uncovering the reality behind the polarizing headlines about artificial intelligence, and we're going to see exactly why we urgently need a moral framework to handle it.
So, are the robots coming for us? I mean, pop culture and sci-fi movies like Star Trek or The Matrix love to tell us to fear this impending robot takeover, right? Or conversely, they imagine these benevolent supercomputers running our starships. But the actual, everyday truth about AI, it's way more nuanced. It's this fascinating paradox of extreme optimism on one hand and deep pessimism on the other. And guess what? It is already deeply embedded in our daily lives.
Section 1. The AI Paradox.
Let's look at the sheer contradictions of this technology. It's not just asking if the glass is half full or half empty, it's literally both. The exact same systems that are out there saving lives, they can also cause fatal harm. In transportation, this dual nature is super stark. On the plus side, AI allows a blind man like Steve Mahan to drive entirely independently around Santa Clara. I mean, that empowers him with a level of freedom we previously thought was impossible, but flip the coin and we see the absolute tragedy of Joshua Brown. He was killed when his Tesla, which was operating on autopilot, crashed right into a white truck because the system simply couldn't distinguish the vehicle from the bright sky behind it. It's the exact same underlying technology, but with wildly different human outcomes.
We see a really similar paradox in marketing and human behavior prediction. For instance, AI was used incredibly successfully by one organization to identify influential homeless youths, and that actually managed to increase HIV testing by a massive 25%. That is a straight-up life-saving application. But then there's the flip side. In a pretty shocking turn of events regarding consumer privacy, a Target AI system sent baby coupons to a 16-year-old girl. It accurately predicted her pregnancy based on her buying patterns before she had even told her own father.
And then in the media, algorithms are literal lifesavers. The LA Times uses a program called QuakeBot to send out rapid earthquake warnings far, far faster than a human reporter ever could. Yet jump over to the political sphere, and malicious actors are using AI to create incredibly convincing deepfakes. Back in a 2023 Turkish presidential race, a candidate was actually forced to withdraw after a completely fake, AI-generated video was spread online. The tech itself is totally neutral, but its applications, they are incredibly potent.
Moving on to Section 2. What is AI exactly?
Okay, to figure out how to maximize these benefits and minimize the harms, we've got to cut through the buzzwords. What's fascinating about defining AI is this phenomenon known as the AI effect. You might actually be surprised to learn there is no single universally agreed-upon definition of AI among top researchers. And why is that? Because of this effect. As soon as a computer successfully pulls off a smart task, like, say, navigating a maze or playing chess, we tend to move the goalposts. We completely dismiss it as, oh, that's just a clever algorithm, rather than calling it true intelligence. We have this weird habit of only defining AI as the things machines can't do yet.
But for our purposes, in this explainer, we're going to use a broad, highly practical definition adapted from the U.S. National AI Initiative Act. AI is basically a machine-based system that pursues human-defined objectives. But notice that crucial phrase added by the authors of our source text, with sufficient reliability. That part is key. It grounds the technology in real-world performance. It's not just about some theoretical smarts, it's about a machine's ability to consistently execute a goal in our actual messy environment.
Section 3. Beyond the sci-fi hype.
You see, not all AI is created equal, and mixing up the terminology is honestly where a huge chunk of our cultural anxiety comes from. When we categorize the landscape, notice that most of what we interact with today is narrow or weak AI. Narrow AI is designed for one very specific task, like ChatGPT generating text or a Tesla driving a car. It definitely cannot do both. This is completely distinct from general AI or AGI, which could hypothetically perform any cognitive task a human can, or strong AI, which implies actual human-like consciousness. And those last two, they literally do not exist yet. They are still entirely the stuff of theory and sci-fi.
Now, it is absolutely vital to remember that just because we call it weak AI does not mean it's unimpressive or powerless. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Tools like robo-advisors that are democratizing finance, algorithms that rapidly grade complex legal contracts, and even those highly controversial risk assessments using criminal sentencing. These are all incredibly powerful forms of weak, narrow AI, and they are actively shaping our society, our wealth, and our justice system right this very minute.
Let me give you a classic example. Way back in 1997, a weak AI system named Deep Blue beat the reigning world chess champion Garry Kasparov. Deep Blue was evaluating up to 300 million possible moves per second. Kasparov was so deeply rattled by the machine's gameplay that he famously suspected a human was secretly intervening behind the scenes, claiming the machine showed, quote, unusual creativity. Deep Blue is definitely weak AI. I mean, it couldn't do your laundry or hold a conversation with you, but in its narrow domain, it was practically superhuman.
Section 4. How do machines learn?
So how exactly are these narrow systems programmed to achieve these spectacular and sometimes genuinely dangerous results? Historically, computer scientists used what's charmingly called GOFAI, or good old-fashioned AI. This relied on strict, logical, human-coded rules. Think of a robotic vacuum that is told, hey, if you hit a wall, turn 90 degrees. But today's most capable, disruptive systems, they rely on machine learning. Instead of hard-coded rules, we give the AI a goal and just feed it vast, massive amounts of data. The AI then figures out the solutions entirely on its own, through experience. It literally learns the patterns itself.
Section 5. The core moral values.
Because these modern systems learn directly from our data, they are essentially learning from us. And human data is messy, it's biased, and it's deeply flawed. This means AI inevitably collides with our fundamental human ethics. To navigate this minefield, we are drawing on the deeply researched framework presented in the book Moral AI and How We Get There. It was written by an amazing transdisciplinary team, including a neuroscientist, an ethicist, and a computer scientist. They argue a really vital point here. We shouldn't simply halt AI development out of fear. If we did, we'd lose out on way too many life-saving benefits. Instead, we must urgently establish a framework for moral AI to keep the incredible benefits without throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
We must deliberately, intentionally align our AI systems with 6 core moral values. First, we have to design for safety, so our cars and drones don't cause physical harm. We must enforce equality, ensuring an algorithm never, ever arbitrarily prioritizes a white patient over a black patient with the exact same illness. We need to fiercely protect privacy against mass surveillance. We must defend freedom. We have to demand transparency from the massive companies building these black box algorithms. And finally, we must actively fight deception from things like deepfakes. These are the pillars that ensure technology actually serves us rather than exploits us.
Look, the technology is already here, and it is evolving so much faster than our laws. The stakes are quite literally existential. And as we've seen, the double-edged, dual nature of AI is undeniable. It's going to amplify both the very best and the absolute worst of humanity. So the only real question left for us to answer is this: are we morally prepared to guide the very systems we've created? Because if we don't teach them our values, they will simply learn our flaws. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and really think deeply about the digital world we're building together.